Happy 2015, and thank you for joining us on our first event of the year. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Jaspitz. I'm part of the New York chapter, and I head up the career management side of things and talent scouting. So tonight's topic is very relevant for everything that I do. So we're super excited to be here. Thank you to Decoded, amazing space, and for hosting us tonight. A little bit more information about Decoded. They're here to demystify the whole thing about digital world. So they work with professionals, individuals, companies on things like one-day courses in code, data, hardware, and apparently even hacking. So if you have any questions about, who's on the team, what is it that they do, or if you think that, hey, this could be something that my own organization can do, or me, myself, I can do, we've got the Decoded team here. They're all wearing little yellow badges. Raise your hands. Yeah. They're going to hang out by the Guinness and the Baileys. Also, huge thanks to the folks at Diageo for supplying us with Baileys and concoctions from Baileys. And the spread of Guinness. We're very pleased with that. I think the Irish are very happy with that. But before we kick off, I'm going to have Ali come up. She's going to have a quick chat to us about what's going on with the ADC.
Oh, no, it's very quick. I'm Ali. I'm the founder of She Says, one of the founders of She Says. There's two of us. So the She Says is supporting the 50/50 initiatives. Who here knows about that? Okay, just a few of you. So it's basically an initiative started by the ADC, the Art Directors Club, which basically aims to get a 50/50 split of men and women into things like speaking engagements, board of directors, juries for award shows. So we want to see both, an even split on that. And there are lots of things that you can do to help. You can sign a petition, you can participate on the site, you can submit yourself or your friend to the directory, and then you will be screened, and if you fit the criteria, we'll put you up as someone who needs exposure, that needs to be looked when people are choosing juries for award shows, or choosing people to go on speaking engagements, or if you want to participate, you can submit yourself or friends for that. There's a criteria. The URL is 5050initiative.org if anybody wants to check that out. Easy to remember. The only bit is .org because most people go .com, but it's 5050initiative.org. And also any writers in the room. For you writers in the room, Lalita, for you writers in the room, or people who have a really strong point of view on something and want to, put it out there, the 50/50 blog is looking for submissions. So just email me email us at shesayshello@shesays.com, or Jen Larkin at the ADC. There are links on the site as well. But if you guys, it doesn't need to be women-related stuff. It could be. But if you have a really strong point of view on something that you want to get out there, we are accepting submissions and writings for the blog. It's really short. You don't have to write a paper or anything about it. So if you want to, and the idea is to kind of give exposure to the voices of the amazing women out there, stuff, which is kind of ties in with the whole initiative. So if you guys are interested in writing for that, just go to 5050initiative.org, and there will be loads of contacts from there. So that's it. No, don't need to clap.
Okay, so a bit of background. Tonight's event was actually inspired by our Australian chapters. They both had very successful evenings with Marvelous in the middle, and it sort of was a great way for us to kick off 2015, re-energize what it is that we're doing, figure out how to position ourselves and how to move forward in our careers. That's why it's we invited this amazing panel here who are, midway in the careers. They're far from being over with their careers and being able to share their experiences. I think you've got about 40 more years in that span. Being able to share their experiences and stories to help sort of get us going with what we want to do in 2015. Okay? So it's a hot discussion, as far as the topic goes, the whole gender wage gap, right? And a lot of explanations for it include things like, how many hours do we work, occupational segregation, workplace flexibility, direct discrimination, gender stereotypes, and ability to negotiate. But looking beyond that, each of us could, what else could we be doing to make sure that we're spotting the the right opportunity or awesome opportunity, and making sure that we make that leap, we don't hold ourselves back before we miss it and it passes us by. So it leads us to our panel tonight, and I want to introduce each one of them because it'll be faster that way. If I let them go on, it might take too long. So we've got Agata Seidel. She's a senior planner at RGA. She's actually one of my first candidates when we kick-started the whole career management side of things, what she says. So I've known her for quite a while now. And she made the leap from research into being a digital strategist and having her first agency role at last 3 years ago. A little further back. Okay. So then we have Claire Kelly. She is currently the creative agency lead at Google. Again, I've known Claire for even longer. She was part of my team at Ogilvy London when she was part of the graduate recruitment program. She did a fantastic job on Sunsilk, and to be honest, we knew she was going to be a rising star. So this is one person you should definitely follow. And then next we have Heidi. Heidi, here we go, my notes on. She's head of product North America for Decoded. She is one individual that has her mindset of, where do I go to, where I'm aiming for. She started off as a designer developer and somehow forwarded into doing product and even marketing. So creating products but also marketing them quite successfully. We have Amanda Taubman next to her, who is the director of mobile strategy at Horizon. Again, someone who I've known since the start of the career management side of things for She Says. Amanda she comes from channel planning. She has a real focus on mobile. And when we caught up towards the end of last year, we're like, well, what do you want to do? What's next? What do you want to do next? And part of it is like, do I have the ability to move away from channel and doing things more that's comms planning? Because everyone makes that distinction. I'm media, or am I doing, creating a brief that I'm coming up with campaigns out there? One of the things that she helped identify was that I need to start managing people. Let's find an opportunity where I can do that. So 2 weeks into Horizon, we'll see where that goes. Next to her, we have Brittany Brown, senior manager at Diageo doing consumer planning and research. She came from the agency side of things and was able to transfer her skills over to the client side. And I think a lot of people here will be interested, who are in the agency side, how that happened. Because everyone asks, how do I get to the client side? And then we've got Melanie McShane. Melanie, a transplant from London. She is a senior strategist at Wolf Owens. She's been in New York for 2 years now?
Yeah, about 2.5 years.
2 years, but coming over from Wolf Owens in London. And prior to that, she was actually a digital producer, and we'll go into that more details, like how do you transition from that and why into strategy, and then doing a transatlantic move. And then we've got Sarah Parkinson from BBDO. She's one of the directors there. And Sarah's story is she comes from a client service background, but she's always worked in boutique agencies, even in London, and then coming over to New York with boutique agencies like Johannes Leonardo, and then realizing I need to have a bigger experience, and recently joined BBDO, working on Starbucks. Yay! I'm from Seattle. Yeah. So this will be an interactive panel, but I've got some questions that I'm going to kick things off with each individual. But if you have something that's like a burning question that you want answered, raise your hand and we'll try to answer it. Okay? But my notes are here, so we don't go off tangents. Okay, so Heidi, let's start off with you. So as introduced, you start off as a developer and designer. And then, the question is, how did you get to where you are today?
So,
Very broad.
Yeah. I spent about 8 years on the technology side, kind of helping build up products for large brands, background entertainment brands at Turner and Viacom. Kind of realized at that point that, I also had a propensity to work at startups. So, went and did that as well from the tech side. And then managed different projects there, but really kind of wanted to have that understanding of what makes these startups function, how do they work, what kind of makes them better, and kind of use that as leverage to figure out, okay, well, how do we make great products? How do we make users love great products? And what can we do to make that part better?
But what is it that sort of these opportunities, sort of your career path that you've taken, that enabled you to say, that's an opportunity I want to go after?
I would say my biggest opportunities that I've had have been kind of, in seeing that next step would be, number one, also, meeting people like Amanda that have helped me guide my way, but, being able to just kind of see, different startups that I've worked on kind of have their successes and have their failures and learn from those, and then the big jumps are kind of, reaching out, talking to other people, finding out what their successes and their failures were, and then using that to kind of build my network, build the products that have gone on to be successful, and kind of go from there.
So, those are you spotting opportunities, but do you feel that because of like the skill set that you have, that the opportunities come and find you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, my technical background is definitely a leverage point, as well as, having that design aesthetic as well. That's something that can kind of be leveraged, across the board for both things. So kind of having that and using that towards being able to build out new things, answering questions that, have different insights or different perspectives that other people might not have had, and being able to bring that to the table.
And then I just remembered, we kind of matched you up with a mentor who's in the same field. Because there's not a lot of females
that are
products. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned, meeting Amanda was one of, not to say my turning points as well, but being able to, have Amanda as a mentor, as well as, my other mentor in the field is Dahlia. And, she definitely, just in being able to get lunch with her and eventually going to work with her. And then, meeting Liz here at Decoded as well, being able to learn from them firsthand. And learn underneath them and kind of figure out the ins and outs, and have someone be there to also guide you along the way, and point out both your strengths and weaknesses, and help you in kind of growing within yourself too. So that is definitely
kind of moves us a bit into, you have the mentors within work, and you have mentors outside of work, and taking on sort of the passion projects. Now, why do you think those are so important to still have? I know you're spreading your time, but it's like giving yourself time to be able to do those and build upon your skills.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of passion projects, just because, especially in an industry that's changing so rapidly, it's very hard to stay up to date and stay always kind of, at the bleeding edge, and understanding exactly what's going on, and especially in working in technology and technology influenced fields, everything is just kind of keeping changing so quickly that in order to keep up to date, you kind of have to have your skin still in the game. So I absolutely think that by being able to have those passion projects on the side, you kind of keep your hands dirty and yourself hungry. So.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to Brittany. So prior to Diageo, you're at McGarry-Bone, and really climbed in 4 years from being a planner to a planning director. So that's significant. So sort of, I'd like you to tell us a bit more about those strides within the one organization before we move into how you took that leap into the client side.
Okay, yeah. Honestly, part of it was really good luck, and part of it was a lot of busting my ass. And the good luck part was that I joined an agency that was in rapid growth at a tipping point for the agency, so that opportunity doesn't come along that often. Part of it, the luck, was that I was working directly under a woman who acted as not only an amazing boss that continued to push me, but also as a mentor. So had a lot of empathy as well, and demonstrated that as a planner through her management style. And part of the luck was working in a department with a woman who believed that if you raised your hand and you were ready for the next level, then she would put you there, and you were either going to sink or swim. And a lot of people wait for you to already be doing the next job before they promote you, and she kind of had a different philosophy on that. So that was really lucky. That's not common. So I realized luck, but also the hard work and the busting my ass had to do with, I kept my hand up for basically 3 years straight for anything that came along through that agency. during the rapid growth years, every single solitary new business pitch that came along in 2010 and 2011, I worked on, to the point of, like, I remember I sent an email out, like, after our run one time, and I was like, I am tired. I am so tired. I cannot do anything else. I must not do anything else, or else I must leave. And then they were like, okay, let's actually move you off of new business and let's put you on a piece of business for the long term. And I was very strategic about asking for the piece of business that I wanted. Like, I knew there were certain things I wanted to develop, which were I wanted an opportunity to manage a junior planner at some point. And so was there an account that would let me do that? I wanted an account that would let me work really closely with the client. So was there an account that fit that kind of box that I was looking to check? And so kind of being a little bit aggressive with, like, what I wanted, even when the opportunities were coming, and not always were they fulfilled, but at least people were hearing where I felt like my kind of managing my own growth throughout that process. So I think it instilled a lot of confidence in people to continue to let me stretch and let me prove myself in that way. So that was, yeah, I think that was it.
That's like the perfect attitude
Yeah.
to have. Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. There's so many younger people that either have that fighting spirit and say, raise your hand up, or there's the other group that just sits back and wait for things to happen. Things don't just happen anymore. You have to go out and hunt for it. And then moving on to, switching over to the client side.
Yeah.
How did you make that, how did you, first of all, decide I'm going to go to client side?
Yeah.
And then making that transition, was it as hard as you thought it would be or
Yeah.
could be?
Okay, yeah. So, I think I felt like I had spent 4 years at McGarry. I felt like I had done a lot of great work. I'd worked on trends here. I'd worked on new business there. I had, tried to help run global through Chevron over here. And I felt like I had really stretched as much as I could within the agency. But I was really clear and understanding that I had a very special thing, a very special relationship growing up with an agency like that. So it was really very pointed and talking to recruiters about that next move. I didn't want to just, a lot of times you'll see jumping agency to agency in order to get to the next step. And that is, truly one of the, it's good and it's bad for all kinds of reasons. One of the easiest ways to see forward progression in this industry, but I kind of wanted to stay put and wait for an opportunity to come along that felt unique. So every single time a recruiter would call me with something that would be amazing and way more money than what I was making, I was like, I just need something that is different and allows me to transfer but doesn't set me backward. And that was a lot of patience, and that was also a lot of turning down really amazing opportunities along the way, with amazing people that I was meeting and places where I felt like I would really fit in and do a great job, knowing that I wanted to somehow figure out how to broaden my skill sets. Planning's like this really weird, nebulous thing in an agency where, like, every single agency defines it differently, and every single account defines it differently, and every single client wants something different from a planner. And I was starting to feel like I was somehow moving backward in my ability to move with and work with clients, because I felt like, wow, I don't know what they want. I don't know what they want from planners. Planning's changing so much. I don't know if planning's relevant to them. I don't know if they know how to use planners. And eventually I had a mentor in the industry who was sent a note through one of the planners at Diageo and said, hey, do you have any people you would like to put their name in the hat? And she asked me if she could put my name in the hat, and I said, this is amazing, this is like the thing I've been waiting for. And it took a full year for the job to manifest. And so that
More
was
patience.
a lot of like more patience, yeah, and talking it through, making sure it was the right move. And then, I think coming over to client side has been an incredible learning experience as a planner. It's helped me gain empathy for the clients and what they're dealing with, and also how clients and planners can work better together. And it has definitely stretched my skill sets. There are times where I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about at all. But I'm not shy to say that either. I'm like, here's my skill sets, and like we're playing outside this realm, so I can get up to speed, but I may need a little bit of hand-holding to get there. And I think that level of boldness serves me well. So, yeah.
I think there's a lot of great advice there in everything that you said. So we'll come back to you unless you
I
got
have a question.
Yeah.
You're not talking about media planning.
No.
Can you
Yes.
kind of describe in 10 words or less what a planner does in general?
Yeah, so on the agency side, I dealt a lot with creating communications and messaging strategy for our campaigns and helping sometimes work with media agencies to figure out what we were going to do and how we were going to activate off of that message to make it all fit together and make sense.
Kind
And
of like strategy?
yeah,
almost?
a lot. Yeah, totally. A lot of strategy. Yeah, exactly. And on the, I think I dealt more with like the nebulous creative side of it on an agency side, and on the client side, I'm dealing a lot more with trying to plan targets and pick targets, and a lot of research, and also trying to like help continue to like shepherd the brand along and like keep it in its pen, you know, and not let it flay out everywhere with all these like little idea sheep that are trying to reach more people. You know? So you know, there's definitely a little bit more business that I'm dealing with. I mean, it's just I'm in bed, literally on the client side over there every day, working beside clients. So it's obviously going to be more business focused for that reason, and trying to continue to work with my planners on the agency side, and you know, have us all hold hands. Yeah, so that's what planning is. But everybody is different. I bet if you like ask anybody in here, they'll be like, "Well, actually, when I'm planning, I do this." Yeah.
That's all right. I came from a time where planning was what client service did, and we were also the producers and project managers.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of planners decided they don't want to face the client, so we'll spin them off.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of that. Actually, quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, before we move on to the next speaker. When working with the agency planners, knowing that you came from the background, do you feel like you have more patience for them, or do you expect more out of them?
I definitely expect more out of them. You know, I think I definitely have more patience for the agencies as a whole, and a lot more empathy for the process, and I'm able to kind of, you know, help teams like understand like how to set expectations and like really clearly communicate what you want to get the results that you want, and how it's really a team effort to get there and to the idea. And then with my planners, you know, luckily I work with some amazing planners in the agencies that I work with, but I'm definitely, you know, one of the things I had, I'm sorry guys, I'll shut up in a second, but it resonates with me what you say about how planners spin off and don't want to face the client. And one of the smartest things that you can do is keep saying, I want to be closer to the client, I want to be in front of the client as a planner. And that's sometimes really hard. One of the best advice that I got early on was that I needed to like email the client once a week to say just something. Hey, I saw this article. Hey, I'm thinking about your brand. You're paying me for something. I am doing something that has to do with your business. And there's some advice out there that's given that says, hey, that's really annoying to clients. It's too much for them to get that in their inbox. But it's not. Like, they're like, oh, did you see that article? Like, maybe they're not checking it all the time, but that occasionally they're seeing your name pop up, and they're going to build that trust with you. And your ideas are only more influential at that point. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. Claire.
Hello.
So, as I said, I've known Claire for years, and it's been a good sort of, you know, traveling along her career path, because I've seen her grow as an individual and recently into mommyhood, 3-month-old. So she was part of my team at Ogilvy London, starting out in client service, and it was at that point where I knew she was determined, she was very organized, she had this creative flair, she was great with clients, and you could see this person, you know, was going to be going places. And Ogilvy London couldn't keep her. So this leads into the whole transatlantic move, you know. How did you make that happen?
That's a very nice setup, thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
I think, so for a transatlantic move, moving within a network helps, for starters, for anyone who's thinking of making moves, particularly when things like visas and logistics like that are involved. So from my point of view, I was relatively junior still when I was making the move over. I was probably 3 or 4 years into my career, which wouldn't have been typical for Ogilvy to move people over. So it was important to start with a really solid track record of performance because it was, being someone that the agency wanted to invest in, because it was a, financial, they're investing in you, so you have to show that you're worth it, I guess. And then there was a sense of just being tenacious and showing that this is something that I really wanted and was passionate about. So to that end, it was about making myself available to go to New York and meet with a team who might have an opening, because transferring over depended on a role actually being open in the New York office and me getting that role. It wasn't as simple as hey, I want to move to New York, and that they'd put me on a plane. So I really had to and did make myself available and show that I was committed to making the move. And then, earlier on, someone was talking about mentors. I had a male mentor within the Ogilvy London office, and so when things were sort of getting a bit hairy and was this actually going to come through, having a sounding board and then someone more senior up the chain who was actually going to go to bat for me and say, no, we really got to make this happen. We've really got to make this happen for Claire, really helped. So
Okay.
that helped.
So you moved over, you got the job, you moved over, and then how many years did you stay with Ogilvy there?
I was probably for another 3 or 4 years after I moved over.
Okay, so about 8 years in total
Yeah.
with Ogilvy. So was it a hard decision to say, right, I need to sort of
Yeah.
move on now and
Yeah.
see what else is out there? What was that turning point that made you decide that you had to move on?
So when I came over with my then boyfriend, now husband, we sort of said we'd give it a year or two, and it was New York. We didn't quite know what we were setting ourselves up for, and then pretty quickly, we love it here, and just felt really energized by the city and energized by the opportunities within the market here. I think if you can dream it here, you can do it, and there's everything. There's from the small startup to the huge big network agency, and everything in between, and more so than a greater breadth than I felt in the London market. And so I reached a point where though there were so many amazing things about working at Ogilvy and so many things that I will always be thankful for, and particularly in starting my career off there, I wanted to explore what else was on offer within the New York market and meet more people and experience different cultures, professionally. And so those were sort of key drivers for me to decide to leave. I mean, I left the agency on great terms, and so that really helped as well, because they were clear that the door was always open to come back if I wanted to. So that's important.
So you left
Yes.
without having a job to go to.
I did.
So any regrets on that bit?
No.
So you got to take some time off for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's really important to invest in yourself, and not just, it's really, really important to work hard and, hand raise all the time, as Brittany was saying, and to put yourself forward for projects and to be a positive force and a positive person. But there has to be this other side to you, other than just what you're doing at work, that makes people want to work with you. And a lot of that happens outside the office. And it's your interests, and it's the things you talk about, and it's your personality, it's your sense of humor, it's the things that are going to make people go, oh, I want that person on my team, or I want to hire that person. And I think it's really important to develop those parts of yourself. And New York can be a bit of a rat race and a bit of a treadmill, and it's important to come up for air. So that was one of the things that I did before, when I left Ogilvy, was do fun stuff that I hoped would make me more fun.
So with that time, reflecting and making yourself more fun,
Yeah.
you found other agencies to
Yes.
work with,
Yeah.
both as a full-time staff as well as a freelancer.
Yeah.
And then it came a point where you're like, Google came up.
Yes. Yeah.
So was that something that came to you, or did you go to that?
A bit of both. So Google had always been on my radar, and I'd always been intrigued by working there, from a point of view of, their smarts and, the digital side of things, and just the sort of mystique of Google and free food and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. And I interviewed with them just after I left Ogilvy, because a friend of mine was like, you should really go check them out. But I was really hesitating about going from one really big organization into another really big organization, and I met with the marketing team there, and I remember thinking, God, they all just seem very sort of dry, and I just don't know if I'd fit in there. And that role ended up being filled internally, and then fast forward, slow forward, 4 years or so later, and a friend heard about this role that I'm currently doing at Google, and it's in a whole new team that didn't even exist, 4 years ago, and my team works with creative agencies versus media agencies, and so it was a wonderful thing that other opportunity didn't work out, because this is a much better fit for me. So to your question about how did I come to it, I think it was a bit of push-pull. They'd always been on my radar, but ultimately, I think this was the best fit for my personality and for my background. So it's important to, to Brittany's point, to wait and really go after the things that you're like, oh, I know I'd be good at this. I know that this is ticking my boxes, and not compromise what you actually go after.
What was quite interesting was that the time that you got offered the job and you took it, how many months pregnant were you?
I was 7 months pregnant when I started, so on my first day of
So they knew what they were in for, and they didn't hesitate.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. When I interviewed with them first, I was 3 months pregnant, and I thought I was, a hippopotamus, and I wasn't. No one could tell. So, the process is somewhat lengthy, not a year. I'm oh my God, you're very, very patient. But so by I was 5 or so months pregnant by the time they told me that, I was the top candidate and they wanted to hire me. And I was really nervous about making that phone call because they didn't know up to that point. And I just remember I was so excited to get that email going, oh my God, I want this job so much and they want to hire me and this is amazing. And then I was oh God, I'm pregnant. So I got a great bit of advice actually, because I was about to call the hiring manager at Google and tell her. And then someone very close to me was you know what, you should call your future boss, because that person is going to appreciate it a lot more, because the teams at Google are small and you're going to be leaving her somewhat in the lurch if you disappear for a while. So I called her and I said, I'm so excited. I just have a piece of news to tell you. I'm pregnant. And she was but ultimately then she told me, well, look, I have something to tell you. I started at Google when I was pregnant, And so, I mean, that was the best possible response that I could have hoped for. And so the phone call actually ended up going quite well. And they were massively supportive. And, that's one of the things that attracted me to Google. I don't think I would have interviewed for any old company when I was pregnant, because, particularly in this industry, as women, it's really, really tough to have that family side. So interviewing for a company that is known for more family-friendly policies was attractive. Sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, at least you got a lot out, and a lot we can learn from on that front. So, granted, you had a couple months when you started. Did it feel weird being someone that then worked with or serviced, in a way, the agency life that you came from?
From what point of view?
You're going from Google. You're not on the creative agency side anymore. You're dealing with them.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of a degree of skepticism that I see with agencies. When I was going in, and as you say, I wasn't there that long before I went out on my leave. I think they sometimes think, oh, what are Google, what's their ulterior motive, or what are they here to sell, and that's actually not the case with our team, genuinely. And I think my background, I've got a decade of experience at various creative agencies, can sort of help, because I understand where they're coming from, and I understand the challenges with clients, and that sometimes budgets go away and things change at the last minute, and there's all these fire drills and that end up not materializing. And I think I have a lot of empathy the craziness that goes on agency side, and I think that's one of the key factors in my getting the current role.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to you later.
Okay.
So Melanie.
Hi.
Okay. So we've established Melanie as another transplant. So when I was first introduced to Melanie, we were able to catch up on the phone because she spends a lot of time in San Francisco working on Google. But when we were chatting, I was like,
Great company.
yeah. Glad we have this opportunity. So I like going through people's LinkedIn profiles and really drilling them on, what is it they did in the past, and just to get an idea of how they trekked into where they are now. So Melanie started off as a digital producer, and then when we were chatting, she was like, back in the time, early, 2000. Can I say that still? Where digital was still new media. It was hard for the digital people to get a seat at the table to really have a voice with what clients should be doing with their marketing or with their business. And that's one of the reasons why Melanie decided she wanted to go I'm not sure, was it that at that point that you decided I want to go into strategy, or that you were like, I need to find a role that gets me in front of these clients where I can actually make an impact on their businesses?
It's probably a bit of both, I think. But it was a bit kind of Wild West days, like new media, which I suspect a lot of people in this room are like, what's she talking about? It's a CD-ROM. Emerging technology was simply having technology. So it was really exciting because we were making all kinds of mad stuff. As a producer, it was a really broad title. It was really me and normally a few guys. And they were guys who were programmers and editors and animators, etc., who could pull stuff together. And it was a great time. We had fantastic clients. We did the first e-learning platform for WPP, which I'm sure resides in the cupboard. It was about 10 CD-ROMs. But it was pretty clear to me it was going to take ages for digital to be really taken seriously in the boardroom. People just didn't have the vocabulary for it. They would be like, that's cool, I have no idea where that's going. Fast forward, digital, that thing took off quite big. So maybe I should have stayed in it. But I realised I wanted to do something more strategic. And I was working at my agency, and we'd actually won a very big brand job, and we'd brought in freelance and very big heavy hitters from the brand strategy world. And one of them just turned out to be a very kind mentor to me, actually. I'd known about Wolf Olands, reading industry mags. It was well known that Wolf Olands didn't really take on young people. At that time, it was regarded as sort of quite a serious thing that you graduated into. So I didn't really think that I was going to be able to get in at the age I was then. But she really had her ear to the ground and a lot of influence, and she went into bat for me. And I think that was the first time I had someone really sort of take a hold of my career and sort of turn what was probably like frustration or not really knowing how to channel myself and sort of directing it. And actually, even through the interviews, I think I was just a bit slow to catch on. You've probably been in those interviews that I've totally not got it. I'm never going to be invited back, but the lunch was lovely. She actually had to call me up and say, no, they do want you, and you should probably negotiate harder. So, it was making a leap, but I think it was also just sort of finding my way a bit, really.
So, you had it there. You just were moving in that direction. Anyways.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
I suppose so. Actually, I joined Wolf Olands originally in account management then. So I actually moved from account management in Wolf Olands into strategy.
Okay. So, I guess it makes sense for being a producer, moving into sort of account management, client service side of things, because you get that. And then at what point in time did you decide to say, look, I want to now be going into strategy? Didn't want to see clients anymore.
I don't understand this model. I always had to see clients. I didn't realise you could just opt out. Sounds great. If you're having an off day or something. So I think it was, if you're in account management, you got to be in front of the client and tell them the bad news about budgets. And if you're in strategy, you got to tell them good news about the future of the world. So that seemed much more attractive. It was, I think partly it's you start realising what your natural skills are and you start flexing that muscle. I think anyone who really knows what they're going to be brilliant at straight out of university, kind of hats off to them. But you really figure out your way a bit. And also industries completely change. I mean, you know, talking about the evolution of the planning industry, obviously new media's gone away, and now we have things like Decoded pointing out that digital is everywhere. So I also then, if I look back, I had some really great advocates for me as well, that I built relationships with, and I was taken by your point about sometimes you know, people say you've got to do the job before you're given it, and sometimes you get people who are very empathetic and they give you before you're sort of officially ready. I definitely experienced a wait for that one, and that was actually, I realised now, not to do with me, it was actually to do with some changes we were making at the top of the organisation. So it was a bit sort of like, do 2 jobs, hurry up and wait, you know, we're going to fix some other things before we can get to you. And I think having that patience sometimes is quite hard when you're like, God, what more can I do?
Yeah.
But it's been worth the wait.
Well, you've been with them for 12 years now?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Does she get an anniversary at 12 years? Sabbatical? So then, obviously, you know, spent a good time there, 2.5 years, you move over to New York. Was it willful in saying, we've got some, you know, we want you to work on this client, come over here, or you said, I want to move to New York?
I said I wanted to move to New York. And I think sometimes when you really just have to ask for something, it's quite an unusual situation, like you were saying before. Sometimes it's part you pushing, you maybe didn't realise you're pushing, or people are gently guiding you and you think it's your idea. But that was me saying, I want to do this, are you open to it? And you know, I'm very lucky. Wolf Owns is a very sort of supportive culture. If they think it's you want to, if they want to keep you in the family and if there's still a great growth opportunity for you, they really made it happen for me. Although first they did establish that I wasn't just being mad and detonating everything I knew in London. But my COO was fantastic, my MD, and you know, I still feel very much part of the family in London too, and it's really helped me actually, because we do more and more global working. Knowing everybody around the different offices has become a tremendous strength.
That's amazing. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, but I don't want to speed through our next 3 speakers. So Sarah Parkinson at BBDO. So I think I want to focus a little bit on the transatlantic move, because you know you didn't move over with a big network agency or a big global company. You went from a boutique to another boutique.
Yes.
Just quickly touch on that.
So it wasn't so much a boutique that I was working at in London. I was at a place called Iris that had started off as a boutique and had grown into this kind of monstrous integrated agency. And for one reason or another, I had managed to rise up through the ranks quite quickly and was being seen very favorably within the organization. So I was hugely proud of the success that I'd had and was kind of wondering what I was going to do next. And I was at a party one night and I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, "You're being too passive about your experiences in the workplace, and it's time to lean in and tell them what you really want for yourself." And I said, "I want to go to New York." And she said, "I thought you might ask for another account." So I was like, "No, I think I want to go to New York." And it just seemed like this dream that was so big it couldn't be achieved, so I might as well just ask for it. So I went in the next morning and I sat down with my boss and I said, "I've got this wonderful idea. I'm going to move to New York, and I think you should send me to the Iris office in New York." And I, in my clear naivety, just assumed that was going to be completely possible. They actually were very supportive, worked very hard to make it happen, and couldn't. But by that time, the thought was so deep in my head, and I had told so many people that I was going to move to New York, that I just sort of had to do it. And my big mouth has thus become my first step in most of my moves in my career. So I quit my job, and they very kindly said, "We can call it a sabbatical in case you need to come back," which was very kind of them. And I resisted the urge to say, "No, don't bother, I don't need a plan B." Packed my bag and came to New York, timing it, being thoughtful about the visa process time in the UK. There's no point interviewing here in December because you're too early for the April intake of 65,000 H-1B visas and all this information that you learn way too much about. So I timed it right. I came out and I interviewed with just about everybody that I could find in town. I actually went back this morning knowing that I was going to be here tonight and looked through all of my emails from that month when I first came out here and looked at the people that I had connected through various friends or colleagues or people that I didn't know but just thought I'll send them an email and say hi. And everybody who got back to me, everybody who supported me just happened to be female. And I'm really grateful now for all those women who reached out and said, yes, of course I'll introduce you. Yes, of course I'll come and help you get an interview here. So I interviewed all over the place. Some went very badly, and retrospectively, why was I interviewing at that place? That makes no sense. Some went really, really well, and I found myself using the experience I'd had with Coca-Cola to come and run some global Coke projects for Johannes Leonardo, which at the time sorely needed somebody with experience in the area. So it was much smoother than I ever anticipated, and was a success, I guess.
And then you decided, okay, done with the smaller agencies, I need to grow bigger, go bigger.
Yeah, and I've sort of done that over the last 5 years. Johannes Leonardo was 19 people when I got there. So to all intents and purposes, it wasn't really an agency. It was just a bunch of people sort of sitting around a table saying, I don't know, we have some clients, and they gave us $10 million. And it was a really good experience, but I got to the point where I wanted to be somewhere a little bit more structured, with more opportunity, because what's hard in a small agency is when you tire or exhaust on an account, there just isn't anywhere for you to go. So I moved over to Mother, slightly bigger, still very much a boutique, and had a phenomenal 3 years there before thinking to take that next step, to really propel from sort of the middle to the kind of top of the industry. I might need to go and be in a big networked agency, and I've spent a year at Havas before moving to BBDO, looking very much for those opportunities.
So was you looking for it? Did BBDO find you somehow, or was it through connections, or just your LinkedIn profile?
No, they found me through a friend of a friend, and I guess it's the wonderful thing about organizations like this, and you just get to know people who sort of collect interesting people who might one day be good at something, and someone very kind connected me with the head of recruitment at BBDO, who was looking for this role, who got in touch and said, we think you'd be fantastic for this, come in and have a conversation. They spent about 6 months having conversations with me. I think I'm amazingly patient for that, so I think you're incredible right now. And then I moved over there in the beginning of this year.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm going to go over to Agata. So Agata has started off in London, working on trends forecasting as well as research and analysis. She's one of those people that when things, work wasn't coming her way, she would find things to do. And I think she found a way to sell into her boss. Send me to India for 6 months.
Oh, no.
8 months?
I basically graduated in like the worst time you can graduate in London. The recession literally just kicked off. And I had a design degree, and I didn't want to do design. And I didn't know anything about planning or nothing. So I was lucky to get an internship. And then I got momentarily hired and then got let go. And so basically I spent about, I want to say the beginning of my career just starving. No money, would grab any kind of experience I could get, and I started freelancing. And basically, the economy was getting so bad in the UK, for those who were there, if you weren't somewhere already positioned, you were screwed, especially if you were junior. So I went to agencies and I sold in and I said, hey, I'm gonna go to India and I'm gonna be doing these reports. So if you're interested, this is how much I'm charging, and we should talk. And basically I was able to go to India. I got people to pay me 50% up front, was out there doing living for free with families, doing ethnographic research, and was doing reports. Anyways, I survived for a year and then I came back to the States. And then I met Amanda, which I had all this research and consumer stuff, but I was like, well, shit, New York's so big, where's the spot for me? And the amazing thing about New York, you guys experience, is that unlike in the UK, there's so many gatekeepers in Europe. Here, you literally pick up a phone or you send an email. If you're clever enough, you find out people's email formula, and then don't even go through HR. Just go directly, who's the director of XYZ, and I would email them, gently introduce myself and said, please let me know, would it be appropriate for me to follow up with you? Some people would just be like, go fuck yourself, don't talk to me. well, like, how did you get my email? Which is quite rude. But then there are some people that are like, hey, yeah, no, come on by my office. And so that's how I basically got into the industry. And even to this day, like, besides Amanda, who would, you know, push and pull me along different ways, I actually didn't have a mentor. It was really about casting a wide net. If somebody is telling, I had so many doors shut on me because I didn't have enough experience coming out during like one of the worst times. But there's people who will take the chance on you, and then those are the experiences that actually build you into like a really, really amazing person in the industry. So if you're going through like a really, really tough time, and you're like, oh, I don't know, screw it. Don't listen to other people, especially men. Really listen to your female colleagues, and if you get an amazing person to help you out in the industry, just keep raising your hand up, go for things. That would be my best.
Okay, but that's how you were finding all these opportunities. You were a hunter and gatherer. But when you were at Razorfish, RGA came to you.
Right.
That,
well, yeah, you get to a certain point.
Before you go that, even when you were in Razorfish, you still had that mentality of hunting.
Oh, I'm doing it like even today. Like when things slow down to me, just I get so bored, and I go to the most senior people and just you politely introduce yourself, and then you come to them and you say, hey, listen, you know, I heard you speak at so-and-so. I'm really interested in doing this. You know, can we collaborate? Like I actually approach our business development person. He's like the head guy that works underneath the, you know, chief growth officer. And I said, I'm really interested in doing BD. Can I help you do prospecting? Here's the pitches I worked on, and I've helped them win. So he's worked with me a little bit before, and he's like, great, how do we make this happen? And so this is kind of how you know, when you work at a big agency, you might have different opportunities. But I think also if you're working at a boutique, keep raising your hand up for things that you might want to do. People may tell you no, but don't think just because you haven't tried it yet, it's not going to work out.
Okay, that's a great perspective. And then I'm going to actually move on to Amanda, the last of our panelists, and then if anyone has questions, we can ask them after that. So again, met you 3 years ago. At that point in time, you knew exactly which direction you wanted to be in. You knew you wanted to be in mobile. And you stayed true to that. And then, as we said, we caught up at the end of last year to say, okay, what is it that you want to be doing next? Now, after that assessment, and I want to focus on that, what was it then you decided you were going to look for as far as opportunities go to help you get to where you wanted to be?
Yeah, I think, you know, throughout your career, you can kind of get a sense for when it's the right time to leave. So it's really important to trust your gut on that. And if you are feeling like the place you're in isn't working, to start having those conversations. It's a really big thing to have that network you can tap into. You can't just, you know, go throughout life without having, I think, people that you can bounce ideas off of or individuals that you truly trust. So I had a lot of conversations and tapped into people like I haven't talked to in a while and got their viewpoints on it. So I was really kind of looking for something specific, and it was, again, mobile, because I feel like the industry is so explosive. There's so much you can do with it. And I have a lot of experience that I think was still very relevant to a lot of companies out there, and I wanted to keep building on it. Also felt like the agencies I was at, which previously was Jewel and Ansible, so huge holding companies, but a small agency within, was interesting because it was huge, but it didn't have a lot of process. So I wanted to go back to a bigger shop that had a bit more, you know, integration within it, and then also process-driven, like just general approach to business, so I could learn a lot there. And then the team management aspect was important. So everything seemed to really line up well with them. Again, huge like patience, you have to have it, because I started talking to them back in August of last year, and they wanted to move me out to LA, and I was like, thanks, no, can't. I actually gave them the name of my friend and colleague at the time. I was like, talk to this person, maybe they'll be a good fit for you. They could not actually fill the role in LA, which has happened to me twice now. It was the same thing at Ansible. They just couldn't find people out in other places. So I think if you stick with it and you're patient, then eventually it circled back. And then the last thing, which is really important, is having just a really good reputation in the industry. So the world is very small. And I knew that they were kind of out there talking to people within my network and asking those questions, and I did the same thing with them, so that was also really important to maintain good relationships and connections. And then once I felt like, all right, my current role isn't going to allow me to do this, I weighed it all out and then just made the jump. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
This one's for Claire. Actually, you said you were empathetic with agencies coming from the agency background. How different are fire drills and booths? How does the client, what does the client do when it comes to fire drills, or what are the things that they are haggling to achieve?
Great question. I don't know if I can give you the best answer because I only had sort of a couple of months at Google under my belt before I went out on maternity leave. I think if I could sort of twist my answer slightly, I think one of the challenges that someone at Google is in dealing with agencies is that historically the people at Google haven't had agency experience, so they don't necessarily know where agency people are coming from, and they get frustrated that, well, where did that money go, or where did that opportunity go, or why can't we do this? So just like being able to understand more like the challenges that like agency people go through, I think is helpful. I think the fire drills at Google, I don't know, it would be, it's a largely sales-driven organization, so there's a lot of pressure on teams to deliver against that, and so I don't know if fire drills is necessarily the right word, but certainly there's a lot of pressure to deliver. Perhaps.
I guess I have a general question in regards to working at a creative agency. So sometimes you meet people who you want to share a story, and it just seems like such a toxic environment that in New York in general people tend to be sarcastic, skeptical, and how do you handle people like that when you have to work with them, but at the same time you want to be enthusiastic about the project and you want to be optimistic? So how do you?
Are they a party pooper?
They sound super party pooper.
Are they just negative towards the project, or are they just like a really not fun person to work with in general?
You could be like either or. So they could either be just generally horrible to work with, or they're playing sides. It's like how do you play around politics? So like
I think everybody deals with that. I mean, that's like such an art form, dealing with politics. I'm obviously very opinionated, as you can tell.
I have kind of an answer to this. So I've been doing client service for like 13 years now, and I've been in hundreds of situations when somebody on the team doesn't want to do the project, or doesn't know the client, or feels really burned out by something terrible that happened last year. And I think that there's a slight balancing act that you can play within yourself to provide the correct level of empathy for that person, because something is driving the way they're behaving. And if you be the one person who cares enough to ask and cares enough to understand and talk it out with them, you can probably get them to a place where they feel like there's more value in working with you on your team than there is in pushing against you and being miserable on their own. So I would say my approach is more time intensive than most, but I get great satisfaction out of people feeling like we're in an environment where we can like really open up and talk about what's kind of troubling and worrying and stressing us.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, like pointing it out is great. But then there are also those people who are just toxic. I mean, and you might have taken that step and then you realize like even trying to connect at some deeper level hasn't worked. And I think about, my mother will say the more you stir something, the more it stinks, and the more you feed into somebody, the more you feed into somebody who's toxic, and the more attention you give them, the more apt they are to continue being toxic because they're getting that attention. So sometimes I think of it as like a shield that I put over myself. I'm like, oh, that couldn't hit me because I have a shield, so I'm gonna just keep going about my business. And so you just kind of almost have to ignore and just keep pushing forward and being positive. And sometimes that means pulling weight for other people and trying to activate other team members to help fill in the gap where the other person
and they'll be filtered out. They will be filtered out of the industry because everybody, the people who succeed are nice and like supportive to other people and care about other people's experiences
And
in the
they're good at
workplace,
collaborating.
they just won't survive.
Yeah.
It's true. It's going to be temporary.
Are you working on a really bad team right now?
Yeah.
No, like I have been in bad teams, and then I have been in great teams, and they kind of just like, I'm thinking like, well, you never, I've heard like Sheryl Sandberg says, you never just ask someone to be a mentor, you find each other, and so I'm curious, it's like, how do you actually find someone who doesn't have, everyone has their sort of agenda, but how do you find someone who will actually help you propel through your next step?
You'll find them. Like I have someone right now, and it's funny. I thought about this comment this morning because I want to ask someone to be my mentor. Like, and I'm having that. Like, I feel like I'm asking them out on a date for the first time. It's a discussion in my head. I very much want to like formally ask her if she would nurture me, like take her under her wing. It's so unnecessary. She's just like a very supportive person who like, believes in me and has been kind enough to do that. So I agree with Cheryl. You don't necessarily need to ask. You'll just come across people. Someone will walk past you in your career at some point, and you will realize that they can provide you the advice that you need.
Yeah, but it is like sort of Cheryl's quote can sound a little bit passive, like this person just going to sort of drop into your lap and go, "Hi, mentor," but it doesn't work out like that. Like you do have to go and ask them on a date. Like even if it's like, even if it's that point where the person goes, "Oh my God, of course!" Like you don't even have to ask, like but you do have to sort of forge that mentorship connection. But when it gets to the point that you are doing that, it will feel, it usually feels pretty natural, and like you're not asking something like insurmountable of them.
Yeah.
Any other ones? I've got my 7 C's here, and they're actually not my 7 C's. They're sort of the assessment of the Australian events that happened. But when I wrote this down, and after hearing what our panelists had to say, it completely rings true, and these are like a bit of food for thought that you can take with you on sort of like, how is this going to position me, and how am I going to move forward, and anything else you want to apply it to, because I think it is very applicable to anything that you want to do in life. So the first thing is courage. Step out of your comfort zone and embrace the unknown, because if you're quite happy where you're at, you'll never grow unless it just happens. Confidence. Don't be afraid of who you are. Know your abilities and work constantly to improve them. Consistency. Once you know who you are, be who you are. It's like you've written it down, now be that person. Because once you're true to yourself and you believe in that, then you become a respected brand yourself. And this is what will help open doors for you. Criticism. Remove yourself from the emotional part of it. Yes, we're women, we tend to get emotional, but we just gotta separate that from like constructive feedback that's going to help us as individuals. And at the same time, yourself being able to give constructive feedback to your peers or people that are looking up to you. And that will help you build your own profile as far as being an expert in your own space. Change. Learn to love it. Know your core competencies and use them in a new role, country, or project. Anything, really. Remember, it's about you seeing the big picture and your personality that will get you noticed. And I think a lot of our panelists covered that here. Challenge. Challenge your role and your life so you get the most out of every minute. And finally, chat. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Networking is really queen. And the more people you know, the more opportunities for success you'll have. Speaking of which, and this is my little Decoded plug, they're looking to build their client service team and their operations team. So if anyone is interested, come talk to me later. So again, thanks to our entire panel. I think thank you, Decoded, for hosting. Diageo for supplying us with Baileys and Guinness. And again, I'd like to we don't do this enough. Our New York She Says volunteer group, I'd like to thank them for actually donating their time to this passion project. We've got Agata, who's our video producer. We've got, where's Kim?
I'm over here.
Kim's over there. She's our social media person. So that's getting that going. We have Hannah. Where are you? Hannah's there. She's just joined us and taking a lot of the database stuff off our hands. Thank you. And then we have Aoife. Aoife's helps us to make sure we're taken away at our events. So again, thank you for joining us tonight, and hope to see you the next time.